Hi everyone, it's Laura, and I hope you're all doing well. So today I thought I'd answer some questions about becoming a dietitian, some tips for those who are interested in doing so, and just some common questions that I get asked. So if you're interested, then keep watching. So first I'll do a quick overview of what it looks like to become a dietitian. I already made a video on this a couple years ago, but I just thought it'd make more sense to give an overview. So to start to become a dietitian, you have to get your master's at an accredited college, and you can find a link down below to the website that'll tell you what the accredited colleges are. So I went to Auburn University in Alabama, and it was a 4-year program, and I got my undergrad in food science and nutrition / dietetics. And so once you're done with undergrad, then you do an internship, and the internship ranges from 6 months to 12 months. Mine was a combined internship and master's program, so mine was actually 21 months. So once you're done with your internship, then you sit for a standardized test, and at that point you become registered as a dietitian. And so that's when you can start working and get a job and whatnot. And then depending on which state you're in, some states require licensure, which can take a month or so to get. So that's something to be aware of. Once you're done with your internship and you take your dietitian exam, then you may have to wait another month in order to get a job if you're in a state that requires licensure. So side note, if you hear a crunching noise, my dog is chewing on her bone. Tried to convince her to take it elsewhere, but she was not having it. So sorry if you hear a weird noise in the background. She's chewing on a bone. Anyway, so probably the most common question I get asked is tips for people that are interested in becoming a dietitian. Probably the biggest factor that influenced me becoming a dietitian and staying a dietitian was my interest in anatomy and physiology and in sciences. A lot of people going into this profession or going into schooling don't realize how science focused it is. So you do have to take a lot of biology, a lot of chemistry, you have to take organic chem, take anatomy and physiology and microbiology. And that's on top of your nutrition courses, which are very anatomy and science focused. And so when I was in high school, I don't know if this is everywhere or what, but I took AP biology, and I also took another AP science course. I took one in 11th grade and one in 12th grade. And that's what made me realize I really did like science, and it was something that I could excel in because I liked it. And so that was something that really started my journey to becoming a dietitian. So that's probably one of my biggest tips, is if you're able to take an honors or an AP science in high school, then I would do so, just because that will give you a good basis for going into your college courses. Your baseline science knowledge will already be that much more than your average student. I found that really helped me. So if you're able to do that, then do that. Other pieces of advice going into it, I would go into it with the mindset, part of me wished, which my parents would probably croak if they heard me say this, but part of me wishes that I had taken a year in between college, or in between high school and college. Not that that's not for everyone, but I feel like I was really immature going into college. So my mindset was more focused on grades and making sure that I got good grades versus actually learning the material. So actually learning the material didn't start happening until my senior year in college and then into my internship and master's. So probably my last 2 or 3 years of school is when I basically learned everything, just because I was so focused on making friends in college and making good grades that I didn't really let the information sink in. I just learned it for the test, to regurgitate it on the test and to make good grades. So my recommendation is go into it with the mindset of not, I'm learning this to make an A, but I'm learning this because I need to know it for the rest of my life. And that's really where you set, I guess you start in high school, but that's really where you set the standard for how you're going to study and how you're going to learn into your internship. And so that's a huge piece of advice, actually, is learn what you're supposed to learn in college. Don't just learn it for this test and forget about it, because it is information you're going to need to know, and you're going to need to learn it at some point or another. I just had to study a little bit harder in getting my master's and in the internship because I was more focused on getting good grades, and that's not always what college is about. So that's another tip. So the first tip, take AP courses in high school or honors if you can in science-focused classes. Second, actually learn in college what you're supposed to. And then third would be, so my third tip would be when applying for internships. So right now there is a shortage in internships available. And probably two of the main things that internships look at is GPA and then your GRE score. And so my advice going into applying for internships once you get to that point, so once you're done with your undergrad, is to be open, to not be completely set on these particular programs, but to be willing to potentially move somewhere else or do distance programs to where the school may be in Colorado, but you'll do your rotations where you live at that point. So just be open-minded when it comes to your internships, and also when it comes to your first job. Don't be completely set on, this is what I want to do, this is what's for me, this is what I love, and this is the only thing I'm going to do. Just keep an open mind, because there are a lot of options when it comes to being a dietitian. You can work in so many fields and so many areas that to just be very narrow-minded will do you a disservice. So just keep those things in mind. So the next question is, did I work during my bachelor's and during my master's / internship? So during my bachelor's, I had a part-time job working. I worked at a church and I helped with the daycare. Honestly, though, it wasn't strenuous. It wasn't, it didn't stress me out. It gave me some extra money. And then during my master's / internship, there was no way I could work. I didn't have time. I did have friends, though, that worked throughout college and worked more hours than I did and did fine. And then I had one friend during the internship master's program that she was waiting tables, and she waited tables the first month or two of the internship, and then she had to quit just because she didn't have any time. I think there was a girl a few years ahead of me that she would bartend on the weekends, but it's not something that you can physically have time to do both, unfortunately. Bachelor's definitely, but master's / internship. I can't speak for people that just do their internship because that wasn't the route I took. Like I said, I did my master's and my internship together, so it's a bit more intense. So I can't really speak for that, but I'm pretty sure getting your internship, it's a 1,200 hour internship, and so especially if you do it in 6 months, you're definitely not going to be able to work. I'm not sure about if you do it in 12 months. So yeah, that's what I know about that. So next, did I always know I wanted to be a dietitian? I knew pretty early on. I can attribute that to the way that I was raised. Probably not so much in my younger years, but kind of the older I got, the more health conscious my parents became. They began to eat really healthy. Mom would make us take like a handful of vitamins, and even my dad would take a lot of vitamins. Mom would we would have a napkin beside our plate at dinner, and there would be, our silverware, and then there would be like a dollop of vitamins for like me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. And so they became really health conscious. Even when I was younger, my parents would go for walks around the block after dinner. And so I slowly started running around the block. They kept walking, but I would run around the block and try and meet back up with them before they got back home. So like even at a younger age, not that I was health conscious, but I liked exercising. I liked feeling healthy. I wouldn't say I necessarily would choose to eat healthy at a younger age, but the older I got, the more I became aware that the benefits of being healthy and having a healthy lifestyle. It probably started more with the exercise, and then slowly the food. I became less picky and whatnot. So yeah, I probably decided at age like 15, 16, I wanted to be a dietitian, and that was one of the main reasons I went to school at Auburn, because they had a really good program. And so, yeah, I knew pretty early. So another question I get asked is, do I recommend becoming a diet tech before becoming a dietitian? So what a diet tech does is they screen all the patients in the hospital. So they, depending on which hospital you work at, depends on the patients that are at nutrition risk. So for instance, at my hospital, the patients who are at nutrition risk are the ones with a BMI above 40, a BMI less than 18.5, anyone with any pressure wounds, anyone with chewing or swallowing problems, anyone with significant weight changes, anyone on TPN, anyone on tube feeds, and I feel like I'm missing something. But it's the tech's job to go into the patient's room. They have a screen that they do. They ask them these questions, and they determine which patients are seen by the dietitians. So in order to be a tech, I think the requirements are kind of fuzzy. I'm not sure what they are now, but I know there were quite a few techs that kind of got grandfathered in, because I feel like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the requirements to become a tech. I'll put a link down below. I know some people that become techs are people that do their undergrad and then don't get an internship, and so they become a diet tech. But I don't think it's required to have your undergrad in nutrition, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I'll put a link below about what it is to become a tech. I think now, actually, you might have to take a test. I don't know. Link down below. But I think it would be beneficial. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it would be good in order to, maybe if it's possible for you to get a job at some point during your bachelor's as a tech. I don't know. But I think it would be beneficial because it would teach you how to talk to patients, because that's probably the hardest thing for a lot of people. Going into the healthcare profession is just learning how to see the patient as a person, to have a conversation with them, to not be nervous, to not be socially awkward, to be able to walk into a patient's room and say, "Hey, I'm Laura, I'm the dietitian. I wanted to check in and make sure you're eating okay," and things like that. Just being cool about things. So I think it would be beneficial in order for you to learn to talk to patients, to also have a knowledge base of what it looks like to be a dietitian, because we work really closely with our techs. Yeah, I think it would be, if it's something you're thinking about doing, get a job as a tech, see if you like it, feel it out, and then if you don't, then maybe take your career a different way. So the next question I get asked is about salary, and this is a really good question. It totally depends on what areas you want to work in. So if you want to work in the community setting, you may start out making $45,000. But if you want to work more in private practice and pharmaceuticals, you're going to make significantly more. It totally depends. To add on to that, it depends on where you go, if there's different tiers. So for instance, where I am now, you start out as a clinical dietitian, And then the second tier is a senior level dietitian and then an advanced level. And with each ladder you go up, you get a 10% raise. And that's on top of the 2% of cost of living you get every year. But like I said, it totally depends on what area you want to go into. Also depends on where you live, and also depends on if you want to do side stuff or not. So for instance, I'm a transplant dietitian, but then I also will do consulting for a juice bar, and I'll also do consulting on the side. So it totally depends on your willpower and your drive and how much you want to make. If you're content making $50,000, $60,000 a year and just getting a 2% raise every year, then you can do that. Or if you want to make six figures, then you can do that too. It really depends on your motivation, what area you want to go into, and where you live. Yeah. So I hope that helped you out. It was kind of all over the place. So yeah. So if I could go back, would I do the same thing? I would. I think in my area, I can do so much of the things that I love that it only made sense for me to become a dietitian. I considered switching my majors a couple times throughout college. I considered switching to English. I really, really like to write, and I like reading, and I like poetry. I like writing poetry. I like journaling. I like all of that. And I was doing really well in my English classes, and one of my professors recommended I switch majors, and I sincerely thought about it. But I'm glad I didn't, because I can write as a dietitian. I do. The other thing I considered switching to was engineering, because my dad's an engineer, and he loves engineering. He always has. And so as a child, I remember, whether he was faking it or not, I don't know. I don't think he was. But I remember him loving what he did. And I didn't realize until college that that's not the norm. And so I considered switching to engineering because I was pretty good in math, but I ended up not. So yeah, if I could go back, I would do the same thing. Like I said before, I probably would have taken a year off in between high school and college, just because I feel like I wasn't mature at all. And I feel like I was going to college, like I said, to make good grades and to socialize. I'm an extrovert, so I was hanging out with friends a lot, and so yeah, that was probably the only thing I would change, is just that. But yeah, I would still have become a dietitian. So do I like what I do on a day-to-day basis? Yes, I do. So where I work is, you become a jack of all trades. So you get the inpatient experience. I'm in the outpatient setting the majority of the time. So I get inpatient, outpatient experience. We do research where I work. And we have master students, so I'll sit on a thesis committee. I'll do my own research. There's teaching. So for instance, next week I'm giving a lecture on vitamin A randomly. I don't know. So there's a wide range of opportunities, and every day is different. On top of that, I sincerely like coming home and working on what I'm most passionate about, and that's the social media aspect of nutrition. So I love making videos. I love watching other people's YouTube videos. I love interacting with y'all on Tumblr and on Instagram. So I enjoy doing that as well. I actually am gonna make another video this weekend with a surprise announcement. So there's something else I've been working on that's been taking up a lot of my time once I get home from work. But so the things I do, the dietitian things I do outside of work, I don't view as work. I have fun doing it, and I love doing it. So yeah, I do like what I do on a day-to-day basis. So what does my day-to-day job look like? So yeah, I'll take you through this. So it depends on the day. So for instance, Mondays and Thursdays are different than Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and those are different than Fridays. So I'll just take you through a Monday. So Monday, I show up to clinic. I have outpatient clinic. So I see patients who are post-kidney transplant. So they've already had their kidney transplant. I see them in outpatient clinic from 8 until 11:30. And during that time, which is my favorite clinic because it's a lot of prevention. So once they've had the transplant, the goal is to keep the transplant as long as possible. And by doing that, it's a general healthy diet. So I help them, and they're coming from a really restrictive diet. So the renal diet's super restrictive. So it's educating them on how to transition from a hyper-restrictive diet to a general healthy diet without overdoing it on the unhealthy stuff. So a lot of my education is focused on getting enough fruits and vegetables, drinking your water. So with the kidney patients, we want them to drink 2 liters of water a day, at least after transplant. Increasing their physical activity as tolerated. And I go over their nutrition-related labs with them, and then we make any tweaks that need. So a lot of patients after transplant, their magnesium and their phosphorus will drop. So I may educate them on increasing those foods, the foods that are high in those. We talk about their weight because a lot of them are in increased likelihood of gaining weight. I review their sugars, their hemoglobin A1C, their cholesterol, and I go through all this. I literally turn the computer around and we go through their labs. And then I talk about the foods that need changing if needed. So that's from 8 until 11:30. Then from 11:30 until 12:30, the multidisciplinary team, which is me, the nurse, the pharmacist, the medical residents, the attendings or surgeons, social worker, and I think that's it. Yeah. We go to the hospital, which is connected to our clinic, and we round on the patients that are in the hospital. So that typically lasts between 30 minutes to an hour. And then after that, I have lunch. So from 12:30 to 1-ish. And then at 1, I'm supposed to be back in clinic more 12:45, 1. I get back to clinic, and then we see pre-kidney patients. So those are patients who the majority of them haven't ever had a kidney transplant before. Some of them have, and that one failed. Because kidneys typically last between 10 to 15 years-ish. So depending on when their kidney failure happens, they may need multiple transplants. But I see them initially, and that's where, as a team, we decide if we're going to start the workup, so we're going to start the testing, or if something needs to change. And during that time, I do a lot of weight loss education, because a lot of patients come in. We like for patients to have a BMI less than 35. So a lot of patients that come in are pretty obese. And so educating them about weight loss, talking to them about their current diet, changes they can make. And then I talk to them a little bit about post, not necessarily the obese patients that need to lose weight, but the patients that don't need to lose weight. I talk to them a little bit about post and transitioning from a renal diet to a general healthy diet and what's expected afterwards and things like that. And so I'm there from, 1 until 4:30, and then I go home. So that's Mondays and Thursdays, and then Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Fridays are totally different. We also do liver. I also do a weight loss clinic specifically for those patients that need to lose weight before transplant. We have a lot of meetings we have to go to discussing these patients and whether or not they're appropriate for transplant. And then also we have a donor clinic. So those are for patients that are donating their kidney to someone else. We have a clinic specifically for those people. And then in the middle of all that, I'll do research, I teach lectures like I talked about. So you stay pretty busy. But I'm pretty good about leaving work at work. And when I'm home, focusing on my passions as a dietitian. So when I get home, that's when I work on the YouTube stuff and do Instagram and Tumblr. And, you know, somehow I still have time to hang out with my friends and to hang out with my dog. But I stay busy, but that's the way I like it. So like I said, if you're someone that just wants to do your job and go home, you can do that as a dietitian depending on where you work, or you can do more things that you love to do, kind of like I do. So yeah, that's what a typical day looks like for me. So I hope this helped y'all out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. If I get enough questions, then I'll make another video like this. I just feel like I get asked the same questions, so it'd be nice to just put it out there. And I will be seeing y'all soon. Hope you have a great day. Bye.